portion of this story, right? So I wanted to talk about especially how was he able to support you wanting to create a business in another state that neither of you had ever been to and grow it to this magnitude and deal with the distance with it? Because I feel like with the marriage, that's difficult, especially with going through the tough times of a marriage. I think that's really important to talk about the love aspect of it and dealing with that.
Listen, it's why it's called Love and Whiskey. It's not just about the love between Jack Daniel and Nearest Green. It's the love between the families. It's the love. I had someone in the press tell me at one point that they felt like Love and Whiskey was a love letter to Lynchburg. There is so much love in every page, but the love that you can't miss is the love of my husband of 22 years this year. But here's the thing, is, hello, who's got a mic? All right. This is kind of going back to where we started with the question of, I don't want to be Saul, right? Keith and I really do spend a lot of time in prayer. So it wasn't actually a hard move for us because we both got the same answer from God. So if he had gotten a different answer, there may have been a strain. But because we knew almost instantaneously that it was supposed to happen, that this was meant to be, it was very easy for us. And so for a lot of people, they'll go, well, how do you know when it's God, right? How do you know it is God? A lot of people have a lot of different answers for that. He's got to really show me, because he knows that I know that he says, test me. So I do. And so he will put things in place so that I'm super clear. So I will give you a couple of examples, and I think this will answer your question. Keith and I, my husband's name is Keith, for those of you who do not know. Keith and I were at the library in Lynchburg to do the research. We hadn't been in town but for a few hours when the second eldest living descendant of Jack Daniel walks through the door. Y'all will read this story in the book, for those of you who do not know it. And sitting with me, very short period of time, actually she never sat, she stood, we were seated. But she told us before she left, and she was only there for about 15 minutes, she said, hey, you know where Jack grew up and where Nearest was the distiller, and that property, that 313 acre property, which we now know is home to the original distillery number 7, yes, that did exist, and Nearest Green is the only known master distiller for distillery number 7. She said, you realize it's for sale? Right, that's what I said. The next day, we got a call from her cousin, a realtor. Now, mind you, this is Jack's family. You saw my cousin at the library. She said you want to go see the Dan Call farm. I'll take you to see it. I'm a realtor. She takes us to see the property. The property had been on the market for 18 months. How's that possible? It's home of the original distillery number 7, but it came out in my research, and they've had a historian for 30 years. That's one example. By the way, that realtor had been in the family business her whole life, girlfriend of Victoria's. The family business was Jack Daniel Distillery. When she retired after 31 years as the head of whiskey operations, she decided to go into real estate. She came out of retirement to be the head of whiskey operations for Uncle Nearest Drinking Whiskey. That's one example. But there were other things that God just kept making sure we were clear, because what we're doing is not easy. What we're doing is hard. There's levels of hard. We're at the highest level of hard, I would argue. And as I was doing research, many of you know this if you've read the book, but as I was doing research, I was in one of the elders, one of Nearest's descendants, one of the elders of the family, and I come across a newspaper article on her grandmother, Mammy Green, and it was saying she was turning 99. This was when she was alive, so this was a clipping. It says she's turning 99, send Mammy cards to wish her a happy 99th birthday. And it showed, I looked at the date and I calculated, it said her birthday was on September 5th. And then I calculated back and I thought, September 5th, 1901. Okay, cool, that's amazing. That's my birthday, September 5th, right? So I thought, this is so cool. Mammy and I, her grandmother and I are both born on September 5th. That is amazing. Then I discover in interviewing Ben Green's son, Duff Green. Ben Green is the person who wrote the only authoritative biography of Jack Daniel, written in 1967, height of the civil rights era. He writes a book called Jack Daniel's Legacy. He interviews everyone around Jack, everyone that was closest to him, his nephew who he turned the distillery over to, his great nephews who were running it at that time, every person who ever touched Jack or touched Jack's nephew who he was closest to. That's who was interviewed for the book. He included Nearest and his boys 50 times. You're talking about during a time where African Americans would not be given credit. He went out of his way because of what Jack's family said to include Nearest and his boys more times than Jack Daniel's own family. That's Ben Green. Interviewing Duff Green, I learned that his birthday was September 5th, 1902. So then I continue on in doing all the research, and we've now launched Uncle Nearest, and the article, the original article that I read in the New York Times, written by Clay Risen, that kind of was a lob, shared a little bit, enough about Nearest Green to make me want to dive into it. My husband calls me or texts me one day and he says, hey babe, I don't know, you probably already know this, but did you realize that you and Clay Risen were born on the exact same day, September 5th, 1976? There's 4 keepers of the story of Nearest Green's legacy that has made sure over the years that even as it went away, it never fully went away. When a new company bought Jack Daniel's and the story disappeared, her grandmother made sure that every person who came to her house, she would point at the distillery and say, my granddaddy made the whiskey for that man. Ben Green puts out the book in 1967 and people have to ask, well, who's Nearest Green? Then you have Clay Risen that comes out with the story in 2016, and then you have me that reads the story and is drawn to the story. But the thing that lets us know, and this is kind of the test me and I'll prove it to you kind of thing, we were all born on the day historically celebrated until more recently when they began celebrating the entire month of September as his birthday. We were all born on the day historically celebrated as the birth date of Jack Daniel. So things like that keep happening, as hard as it is to do what we're doing, you better believe we're never going to stop, because we know that we know that we know we were created to do exactly what we're doing right now together in this generation.